Welcome everybody. What I'd like to talk to you about today is a series of steps that we call the Fundamental Upset Recovery Course Development Building Blocks. This discussion is designed to take you through the process of how a upset recovery program is not only put together but also the core elements. We're not going to get extensively into the details of each step, but these are elements after 13 years of doing this, training pilots from all types of aviation, both experienced and inexperienced, how to most effectively gain the skills necessary to mitigate the loss of control in flight threat. So whether you're watching this video series for your own education, in other words, you're trying to decide whether this type of training is for you personally, whether you're putting together a flight department training program where you're going to use services of a training provider, whether that be our company, APS Emergency Maneuver Training, or another company, what I'm hoping is this video is going to explain the core elements we found that are absolutely critical and necessary, that have to be there to succeed, to develop skills in upset recovery training where you can save your airplane and save yourself, and most importantly, of course, saving all those people who are with you on board the airplane. And that is especially important when it's your family and, of course, yourself. The first step that I'd like to talk about with this video, and this is the only video we're going to have on this session. There's going to be other mailings where you can link to the other video, and you just take your time. Don't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of information. The very first video, this one, is going to be about academics. For years and years, we've been very thorough in our academics, and it's really important that the academics are on the stuff that matters. Very often, schools get caught up on training typical information, in other words, glorified information from essentially the regular training industry. Unfortunately, it's something to keep in mind is that the way that pilots are trained right now by the regulatory agencies is in fact one of the reasons why loss of control in flight is the leading cause of fatalities and hull losses in commercial aviation worldwide. Now, what I'm not saying is that the information isn't in there, but it's not given the proper emphasis. So really, what we want to do is look at the basic core elements of aerodynamics and give them the proper emphasis and attention, but also how those core elements and fundamentals apply in an all-attitude, all-envelope situation. Really, really important. So the academic portion is extremely important. The areas to focus on is a clear understanding of pilots of what angle of attack is, understanding the implications of angle of attack not only on the creation of lift, but the optimization of lift, which is not always necessary maximizing it, the association of angle of attack with drag, how those elements come together in an upset, and how angle of attack is a primary critical issue to manage, not only in stall recovery, in all unusual attitude recoveries, is very important that it's managed properly. It allows us to optimize lift and optimize drag, and I need to emphasize that that does not always mean that lift is maximized and drag is minimized. It really depends on the situation. Other area is energy management, understanding the effect of power and what it does to a situation. A lot of people think that power keeps you safe from a stall. Add power to avoid the stall. That is absolutely incorrect. What power does is it affects, sustains, or diminishes your energy state. And that's primarily what it is used for. How does that apply in an upset recovery situation? Well, power, addition or reduction, or as jet pilots thrust, really depends on the situation. It depends on your type of airplane and what is going on. What type of flight condition are you in? There's information that you need to understand about your airplane as the pilot to make the right decision in an upset recovery situation. Another one is yaw. What is yaw? Very often we see people panicking, not only the big pull response, which is of course a mismanagement of angle of attack. Very often that instinctual pull response we see is often compounded with inappropriate use of rudder. People jamming in the rudder, trying to roll an airplane, thinking that rudder is the magic solution to solving an upset. Remember that rudder is used in any part of aviation, doesn't matter what you're doing in aviation, is to cancel and create yaw. Really, really important to understand that. Ideally, as a pilot, we want to use rudder to cancel yaw. So that doesn't matter if we're in a single engine airplane, a multi-engine airplane with an engine failed, or recovering an airplane, we want to make sure we're using yaw to cancel. Remember, we're going to use rudder to cancel yaw. All right, and then how to roll. Often people think that rolling is with rudder. It's not. Rudder can be integrated with proper rolling technique to ensure that it's canceling yaw or being coordinated. How do we roll an airplane effectively? Ailerons are the primary roll device to roll an airplane in the normal flight envelope. So right with that comment, it implies that if we are not in the normal flight envelope, then we need to do something to get out of unstalled flight and into normal flight, and then using the ailerons in the proper method to reorient the lift vector in recovery. What's the optimal method of rolling an airplane? That really needs to be covered. And then, of course, our objective of minimizing altitude loss, that is extremely important. Pilots need to understand that even though the overall goal in a recovery is minimizing altitude loss, it can't be the first consideration. We have to assess the flight envelope. Are we stalled? Then we have to reduce angle of attack regardless of our flight attitude. We have to get out of stall, out of negative roll damping, which is an important concept to understand, the effects of negative roll damping on stalled flight, and then reorient the lift vector. After those elements are done, then and only then can we be focused on minimizing altitude loss. So in proper upset recovery training, very often there's too much emphasis on minimizing altitude loss. I'm not saying that's not a primary overall objective, but to be able to minimize altitude loss, it is not the first consideration. We have to give primary consideration to the flight envelope, then the flight attitude, and then minimizing our altitude loss. So understanding those academics and how they apply to an upset is very, very important in upset recovery training, and it has to be delivered in a manner that is very clear. The pilots taking the program have to understand what's going on. You have to have instructors that understand how these concepts apply to upset recovery situations, and then have a building block approach. How do you show these factors in flight training or in the simulator for some of them? How do we go ahead and show that stuff in a building block approach to be able to generate skill and knowledge to be a safer pilot? That academics is the first critical step in an upset recovery program, and we're going to be talking about 5 critical components to an upset recovery program, and academics is the first one. Options: instructor-led training from experts. Other options: web-based training. I know that we have an excellent course based on the Airplane Upset Recovery Training Aid Revision 2 that is very, very good resource for pilots to get a general understanding of causes, aerodynamics, and general techniques for recovering an airplane from an upset. So, start with the first step. Got to get educated not only on the threat, but on the primary fundamentals. And of course, the next steps ultimately, after we go through these 5 steps of a critical course, is you have to go get training. You have to have hands-on practice in recovering an airplane. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it.